I've dreamt of standing here for as long as I can remember, surrounded by the same mountains Julie Andrews climbed more than 60 years ago. My name's Ashley, and I've set out on a treasure hunt, one that will take me across Austria in search of as many Sound of Music filming locations as I can find. There are official Sound of Music tours, of course, but I wanted my own adventure, one that goes further and deeper, one that connects me to not only the film, but to Austria itself. I'll visit palaces and meadows, and somehow run into a real-life Von Trapp in the process. And I'll even take you around the world to where that famous family now calls home. Every stop you'll see in this video is pinned to a downloadable map, so if you're ready to plan your own Sound of Music trip, I've got you covered. Let's start at the very beginning, shall we? Welcome to Schloss Leopoldskron in Salzburg. Look familiar? Well, this location was used for the lakeside exterior framing of the Von Trapp family home. Today, the 18th century palace and neighboring buildings serve as an event space and hotel. I don't think it's hard for you to guess where I'll be staying. Tucked at the very end of a long corridor, you'll find a handful of Sound of Music themed rooms, one of which I have the key for. It was a cozy space, if not a little worn down, but clean nonetheless. Adorning the walls were displays featuring movie memorabilia, which I appreciated getting to admire up close. Without a reservation here, you can still visit the palace from afar with a picture-perfect view from across the lake. In the late afternoon, folks were out and about enjoying their promenades as the sun set on Salzburg. Early the next morning, I made my way over to that famous back patio of the palace, a place I've wanted to stand in since I was a little kid. I'd say the most recognizable features of this location were the gate and seahorses along the water's edge. Notably, the tree-lined terrace has been transformed into a colorful gardenscape, beautiful in its own right, but different from what one might expect if they were hoping it would look exactly like the film, which came out 6 decades ago. Did anyone else dream of having tea at the table here, or was that just me? With a rather dreary forecast on the horizon, I decided today would be the day I tracked down all the movie locations outside the city center. It required a bit of driving, but if I could do it all while the rain held out, then I'd consider it a success. First stop, Hellbrunn Palace Park. Built in the 1600s as a Baroque pleasure palace, Schloss Hellbrunn is an expansive estate stretching nearly 148 acres. Visitors can get here by using bus line 25 from central Salzburg, or by booking one of the official Sound of Music tours. If you've got your own car like me, it's a quick trip with plenty of parking. Upon first glance, I assumed that somewhere on this property was the spot used as the exterior entryway to the Von Trapp family home. The yellow paint felt oddly iconic and reminded me of Maria proudly singing "I Have Confidence" as she approached the gates. I soon came to learn that nothing for the movie was actually filmed here. What fans do come here for is a glimpse at the gazebo, a set piece that once resided in a separate location and now sits proudly on display at Hellbrunn. While they generally keep the gazebo locked, you are welcome to peer through the windows, taking in a piece of cinematic history. Does it look small to you? It turns out a much larger gazebo was erected in Hollywood to accommodate the cameras and actors filming scenes like 16 Going on 17 and Something Good. This particular gazebo was merely used as a background element in the movie. In 2026, a Sound of Music museum will be opening here at Hellbrunn, so you won't want to miss that when you're in the area. Movie aside, if you're seeking an easy-to-get-to retreat in nature, I'd highly recommend a visit here to walk among the gardens, take in the serene pools, and indulge in a bit of history. Now determined to find the I Have Confidence spot, I was told to visit Schloss Frohnburg, located just up the road. I opted to walk through the countryside for this one, passing friendly neighborhood cows and townspeople, all taking in the crisp autumn weather. 30 minutes later, I found what I was looking for, and to my complete delight, it appeared exactly the same as the movie. I can't tell you how many times I've thought of this scene over the years and sort of used it as an emotional kickstart if I ever felt my nerves getting the best of me. Schloss Frohnburg today serves as a world-class music and performing arts school, but back in the 1960s when The Sound of Music was filmed, it provided the exterior facade of the Von Trapp family home. The most notable differences I could tell were a new door color and an unruly garden. Other than that, I truly felt like I had stepped into the film here and resisted the urge to play with the gates and skip through the alleyway. I'll have to do that when no one's looking. Next up on this adventure was a trek out to the Do-Re-Mi hilltop. First opened to the general public in 2015, fans of the film can drive right up to the location of the beloved scene, or enjoy the official Sound of Music trail, which runs 1.4 kilometers from the nearby town. This adorable hilltop flawlessly preserves the spot where Maria and the Von Trapp children sang part of Do-Re-Mi. There are some cute displays which weirdly feature images of people not from the film, and a picnic table and chairs to simply enjoy the view. I thought it was a great way to give visitors access to this space without having them trample all over the mountainside. While there, I met a few other fans of the film, including brothers from Amsterdam who had the same idea as me: skip the official tour and pave our own adventures. We shared our pinned maps with each other, comparing notes and locations, and honestly, it made me so happy to meet other people who completely dorked out researching these places too. They did one-up me though, because they found the mountaintop where Maria sings the title track, a spot that sits on private property in Germany. Simply named Julie's Meadow on their map, they very kindly shared the coordinates so I could see it for myself, and I promised to bring you along for the ride. Out of nowhere, air raid sirens began to blare in surround sound, cutting through the serenity of the location. So creepy to hear. Apparently this is an annual test in Austria, and boy did it make this hilltop even more memorable than it already was. Before leaving, my new friends told me that they believed the actual Do-Re-Mi space was across the road. They analyzed the curve of the terrain and compared it to some behind-the-scenes documentary interviews, and after careful consideration, I don't think they were wrong. But of course, that area is someone's private land, so we completely respected that, and I appreciate them setting up a public site a few meters away. The next location was undoubtedly the one I was most looking forward to. As someone who loves hiking, I've always been captivated by the final scene in the film where the Von Trapps made their escape. I've been so eager to see that scenery myself and to also figure out how they might have shot it. My quest to find the spot took me up the Rossfeld Panoramastraße, Germany's highest panoramic road. Forget the film. If you are in this part of the world, I'd highly recommend a drive along this breathtaking stretch of pavement. It's a stunning glimpse at the sprawling beauty of the land. At the very top of the pass are multiple car parks, one of which I used to access the trail. The hike promised to be fairly short and a little steep. I was greeted with exactly that and a bit of mud to boot. I couldn't help but wonder what the conditions were for Julie Andrews and gang as they climbed their way up for the scene. You know you've reached the filming location when you come upon the cross and picnic table. So as long as you have some hiking boots on, you should be okay on this trail. It took me maybe 10 minutes from my parking space to get up here, and it is 1000% worth it. You have 360 views of both Austria and Germany, and it is not surprising that they picked this as one of the final shots of the film. It's really as scenic as it looks in the movie. So I'm hanging out here for just a couple more minutes, well, maybe longer. I'm waiting for the sun to come out. It's supposed to only come out for maybe an hour or two today before it's set to rain the next few days. So I want to just enjoy it up here while it lasts and, play around with my camera a bit. I hope you enjoyed the view as much as I did. Interestingly, the fence line, whether for this purpose or not, represents the border between Austria and Germany, so you can have a foot in each country at the same time. In the distance, you can see Hitler's eagle's nest perched atop the mountain. I regret not carrying my drone with me to match this shot, but I was honestly having such a great time anyway that it didn't matter. I was lucky enough to be the only one here for nearly an hour before I decided to head down. If you want to experience this trail yourself, I've pinned the location on my map in the description of this video, and just know that from the parking lot, you'll need to walk through the turnstile and follow the trail to the left. And if you're hungry, feel free to descend the other side of the trail where you'll find a restaurant before looping back around up to your parking lot. While in Germany, it felt like the right time to find, as the Amsterdam boys called it, Julie's Meadow. I would have called it the hill that's alive, but theirs feels more eloquent, so let's go with that. Respecting the privacy of the owner, I'm not about to divulge the exact location, but instead take you on a general tour of the area. From the top of the mountain pass down into rural Germany, the roadway weaved in and out of quaint villages and past picturesque pastoral lands. How a location scout identified this specific spot for the opening sequence of the movie, I'll never know, but I imagine they wanted a particular mountain range framing Maria as she ascended the hillside. And so, as my GPS guided me closer and closer to the coordinates, I could see that landscape beginning to take shape. When I arrived, I found myself completely awestruck by the solitude. Only a few homes nearby and a tranquil silence floating amongst the fields. I could see Julie's Meadow tucked behind one of the homes, but I chose to stay downhill and parked alongside the main road. About 100 meters lower than the official filming spot is another meadow that pretty much felt like I was in the movie. That's where these shots were filmed. It was a lovely place to visit, and I'm in awe of the people who get to live here year-round. Back in Austria, my final stop of the day was a trip to the town of Mondsee, 35 minutes east of Salzburg. I'm specifically here to find the church where Maria and Captain von Trapp were married. I arrived before sunset and began with a stroll around town, and then went to the shorefront for a glimpse of the view. Somewhere along the water is the spot where the children played in the trees, but with very little time left in the day, it was a filming location I had to skip. The lake was beautiful and seemed to host a mixture of locals and visitors, and the city center itself, winding down for the evening, exuded small town charm. Basilica St. Michael, in my mind, was the absolute standout of the area. I've been to churches all around the world, and nothing felt quite as unique as this one. I loved the juxtaposition of the light pink and white walls against the midnight black shrines. It was gorgeous, if not a little spooky. I remember seeing interviews with Julie Andrews talking about the long walk down the aisle, which I can now fully appreciate standing at the end myself. I also recall her talking about the real skeletons they had to try to cover up for the film. That little tidbit always intrigued me, and I was so glad to finally see up close what she was talking about. And yes, it is unsettling to say the least. All in all, this was such a worthwhile stop to make on this improvised Sound of Music tour. On the way out, I did a quick Google search for a dinner spot and found a charming restaurant in the nearby village of St. Lorenz. This place is known for their local meats, but I'm admittedly not a huge fan of venison, so I went with a delicious salad and some good old-fashioned fried chicken. I even had a little companion trying to sneak a taste. Hello. No. Of course, dessert had to be an apple strudel, which I savored until the very last bite. As if on cue, the skies opened up, and I couldn't help but smile at how perfectly all the timing of today worked out. Good morning from Mirabell Garden. First opened to the general public in 1854, this perfectly curated landscape is nestled appropriately within Salzburg's UNESCO World Heritage Site. The gardens are delightfully picturesque and equally quirky. For movie fans, this is the primary location for a lot of the shots featured in the Do-Re-Mi sequence. And if you didn't know that beforehand, you will definitely know it as soon as you get here because everyone is playing the song on their phones. I walked around for about 30 minutes seeing what I could find. As someone who works in film and television myself, I always love trying to figure out how cinematographers captured certain shots. It looks like they may have been on the roof for this one. Nearby, I overheard a tour guide pointing out a woman below me. Her name, Elisabeth von Trapp, daughter of Werner von Trapp, one of the original von Trapp children. I believe he was played as Kurt in the film. As part of the 60th anniversary celebration of the movie, Elisabeth was hosting private walking tours around Salzburg, and I ended up seeing her at least 4 more times over the course of the day. Must have been a cool experience for those in her group. A few steps away from Mirabell, you'll find a lovely pathway along the waterfront unveiling the entirety of Salzburg's dramatic cityscape. It's a great spot for photos, and it is also home to the next Do-Re-Mi location. From here, I made my way through the city to a place I've been eager to see. Founded in the early 700s, Nonnberg Abbey is a beautiful Gothic property quietly keeping an eye on the bustling streets below. It is a functioning abbey to this day, and it is also a place that represents a true cross-section between film and reality. While we have come to love the abbey for its depiction in The Sound of Music, the abbey was, in fact, the actual abbey that the real Maria once resided. Visitors are welcome to peer inside and can even, in a very inconspicuous and nonchalant way, listen in on one of the many Sound of Music tours that stop here. It's hard to avoid overhearing guides talking about the movie at the more popular locations. The fun fact I learned about this spot was that the bell used in the film was installed just for the production. It was left up after the movie premiered, but was taken down a year later because of the sheer amount of people flocking to the Abbey to ring it. With the whole afternoon ahead of me, I prepared myself to fully explore Salzburg city center. If anything could be considered the backbone of The Sound of Music, I'd argue it's the destination. Salzburg is its own character, inviting you in, immersing you in its history, and enveloping the characters as their stories unfold. It's an almost tangible feeling. Never before in film have I ever felt so welcomed into a place, and that is a sincere testament to the cinematography and artistic direction of the production. So it goes without saying that I was more than excited to see what actual filming locations I could find. One spot I was sad to miss was the concert venue. There are tours offered inside, but I missed the cutoff by just a few minutes. There is a building right next door, though, with very similar architecture, so that's what I can offer you as a consolation. Even if you are, for some reason, not a fan of this film, walking around Salzburg on a movie location hunt is actually, in my opinion, a really great way to see the city. Film spots are scattered all around, but it's a super easy area to navigate and honestly a delight to experience. I wanted to end my day with the 2 places that really fueled my desire to visit Salzburg thanks to their sweeping views of the cityscape and the iconic scenes captured there. The first stop was the Do-Re-Mi staircase. A handful of folks were up here simply taking in the scenery, and surprisingly, very few seemed to be there for the film. Don't get me started on the missing bench. I'm about to start a petition to bring it back. Next up, and my last stop here in Austria, was the I Have Confidence Overlook. I'm only realizing it now, but this particular scene had such an indescribable impact on me as a kid. The way Maria builds her self-assurance in the face of uncertainty is something I think I've subconsciously tapped into to help me navigate my own life at times. And the way the city sprawls out behind her has always symbolized, in my mind, the endless opportunities that await her. I could not think of a more fitting way to wrap up the Austria portion of my Sound of Music tour. After the real von Trapp family left Austria in 1938, they ended up in Italy for a time before settling in the United States a few years later. By 1950, they had established the Trapp Family Lodge in Stowe, Vermont, which is still open to the public and operating today. I had the great pleasure of visiting the lodge in 2019. As I explored the property at sunrise, it was immediately evident how much the landscape drew parallels to that of the Austrian Alpine region. And inside, the utter coziness inspired one to simply melt into a chair with a good book or a well-worn puzzle. It was an idyllic retreat, one punctuated by the incredibly kind staff that worked there. For visitors, it's an opportunity to get to know the real Von Trapps and to become better acquainted with this charming little slice of New England. Not to mention, staying here granted me easy access to some of the best skiing I've had on the East Coast. The farther I followed this movie across the map, the more it hit me. What really endures isn't just the music or the mountain views, it's the feeling that adventure is always within reach if you're willing to take the first step. And that's the end of the journey through the places that brought one of my all-time favorite films to life. If you want to explore it all yourself, the link to my map is waiting in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and as they say in the movies, so long, farewell.